Tonight's talk is going to be just spectacular because I don't fully know what I'm talking about. I've got a vague idea and a couple of stories, which are the perfect ingredients for a wonderful talk. And I'm going to take my mask off too. So the question of the week in the dojo is, what are you pretending not to know? And this is a very important question for us to ask on a regular basis. And it reminds me of a concept that I heard years back and have been kind of playing around with, and I really like this idea. And some of you have probably heard it before, either from me or somebody else. But there are these areas of knowledge, and I'm not going to get into the super metaphysical level of like, what can we ever truly know and what is reality and all of that, which I think is super interesting. It's just not in tonight's talk. There are different areas of knowledge for each individual. There is this area of things that you know, and these are the things that you know. Like, you know, there's a front punch, and I know how to do this front punch. I've been doing it for 21 or 22 years, and that's it. I also know, some bug attacking me now. There are also things that I don't know, and these are things that I know that I don't know. So I might know, for example, that my front punch isn't perfect, or I might know that I don't know capoeira. I think it looks cool. I don't know very much about it at all. I know they do it in the park sometimes, and I hear the drums going, and that's close to where my knowledge ends. It's from Brazil, and it looks awesome. But I know that I don't know it, right? And that is usually what people think of as all of possible knowledge that's out there in the universe. There's what I know, and there's what I don't know. But you're missing the vast majority of what's out there. This is all the stuff that you don't know that you don't know. And this can include things that fit just kind of outside the periphery of your knowledge, but you kind of think that you know it. This could be something that is out there that you just haven't really heard of before, but if you heard it, you'd be able to grasp it pretty easily. And then there is a whole universe of stuff that I think even calling it knowledge or things you can know is kind of a misstatement. But that's like what Zen is all about, and lots of practices, spiritual, religious, being able to get at what you can't really comprehend with your mind, what is not truly fathomable with the logical brain. And that's a little bit of what we'll get into tonight as well. But I'm going to add like an addendum to this. Those are the three that I usually talk about. There's a fourth one, which is what you're pretending not to know. So this is something that you know, but you have convinced yourself, or you're trying to convince yourself or other people that you don't know it. And it's usually to avoid responsibility. So I'll talk about that later on. I got a few great stories from Zen Flesh, Zen Bones. If you haven't read this book, it's the one that I recommend probably more than anything else, just because it's so entertaining and wonderful. There's a classic story here that deals with what you know and what you don't know, and you've heard me tell it many times, but this is a short version, which you will be glad that I'm going to do the short version of it. It's called A Cup of Tea. Nan-in, a Japanese master during the Meiji era, received a university professor who came to inquire about Zen. Nan-in served tea. He poured his visitor's cup full and then kept on pouring. The professor watched the overflow until he no longer could restrain himself. "It is over full. No more will go in." "Like this cup," Nan-in said, "you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" And it's perfect because this is true of anything. If you're attempting to learn something, you have to be able to let go of your preconceptions. You have to be willing to recognize what you don't know. But this is particularly important with Zen because Zen is all about this experiencing what is beyond our ability to logically perceive. If you're going at it from a professor's perspective, and when I tell this story, I put in lots of details that are not in this version because I got the real version. Now, the professor goes in and he's talking about all the stuff that he knows, and he's saying like, oh, you know, Zen first started when Bodhidharma came up and he did this, and then this is the, you know, way that it passed on from generation to generation, and this concept and that concept. And this is stuff that the professor probably didn't actually have to say because the Zen master just knew it. It was just written on his face when he walked in. You could tell that this man just was full of his own opinions and what he thought he knew about it. So this is an example of what you know. You could know facts and you could know a textbook definition of Zen, but that is so far from the full thing. It's kind of like saying, well, an orange. I know what an orange is. I know how to spell the word orange. I know, you know, that it is a piece of fruit, and I can tell you all these facts about it. But when you taste the orange, it blows your mind. You could never have possibly comprehended that this is orange, right? Or I had this, I've never told this story before, but I was roughhousing with some of my cousins in the backyard of my great grandma's house, and she had these orange trees, and we were just taking these oranges off the ground and chucking them at each other from across the yard. But one of my cousins, I got a little too close to her, and she had the orange in her hand, and she just went, and it just like in her fist right in my face. And that was an experience that I never expected to have of an orange. And I got what an orange is on a whole new level then. And this is actually, I don't want to spoil anything for some of you, but the traditional way of answering the question, what is Zen, is for the teacher to hit you, because you experience the moment in a way that, you know, just thinking about it, talking about it, you can't get the real experience. So I'm not going to hit any of you unless you really deserve it, or you really need to know what Zen is. So there's knowledge, and then the professor knew enough to say, like, there's something that I don't know. This is why I've come to you. But he's still trying to get at it from the wrong kind of way. So when you don't know something, you can go to work on, you know, researching it, reading about it, you know, doing it. But I think that experiencing is going to lead you to something that is really beyond what we typically think of knowledge in it. And you'll have an experience that really sticks with you, something that will touch you on a deep level and transform you in a lasting way. When we get into the whole idea of what you don't know that you don't know, this is stuff that won't pop into your head usually. You won't be going through life normally and come across something that makes you think, oh, this is something that I need to research. This is something that I need to, you know, seek out some more knowledge, better understanding, talk to somebody who knows. There's just a whole world of things out there that we might never really come face to face with. And this is one of the goals of Zen, is to give us this kind of experience. So when we're practicing martial arts, or we're, you know, sitting in meditation, something might pop up for you, occur for you, that you will have never gotten by just, you know, reading, watching a video about it, or just going through your day. And this is what is most exciting for me, and I think for most people, is that opportunity to get something totally new that shakes your world to its foundations and gets you excited about, you know, being able to see what else is out there that you never even comprehended. So this is a story that's kind of about that. It's called The Sound of One Hand. And many of you have heard of this koan before. This is probably the most famous riddle or koan in Zen, which is, what is the sound of one hand clapping? So this is a story that talks about that and offers an answer. But the master of Kenin Temple was Mokurai, Silent Thunder, sweet name. He had a little protege named Toyo, who was only 12 years old. Toyo saw the older disciples visit the master's room each morning and evening to receive instruction in sanzen or personal guidance, in which they were given koans to stop mind wandering. So the idea is you receive this riddle and you focus on the riddle, and it is ultimately something that cannot be solved by logical means, and you just kind of get confused out of that state of being, and you're just there in your meditative state. So Toyo wished to do sanzen also. Wait a while, said Mokurai, you're too young. But the child insisted, so the teacher finally consented. In the evening, little Toyo went to at the proper time to the threshold of Mokurai's sanzen room. He struck the gong to announce his presence, bowed respectfully 3 times outside the door, and went to sit before the master in respectful silence. You can hear the sound of 2 hands when they clap together, said Mokurai. Now show me the sound of 1 hand. Toyo bowed, went to his room to consider this problem. From his window, he could hear the music of the geishas. Nope. Yep, that's true. Okay. So I skipped ahead. From his window, he could hear the music of the geishas. Ah, I have it, he proclaimed. The next evening, when his teacher asked him to illustrate the sound of 1 hand, Toyo began to play the music of the geishas. I don't know what instrument he's playing, but I assume it's one-handed. No, said Mokurai, that will never do. That is not the sound of 1 hand. You've not got it at all. So, thinking that such music might interrupt, Toyo moved his abode to a quiet place. He meditated again. What can the sound of 1 hand be? He happened to hear some water dripping. I have it, imagined Toyo. When he next appeared before his teacher, he imitated dripping water. I guess what is that? Asked Mokurai. That's the sound of dripping water, but not the sound of 1 hand. Try again. In vain, Toyo meditated to hear the sound of 1 hand. He heard the sighing of the wind, but the sound was rejected. He heard the cry of an owl. This also was refused. The sound of 1 hand was not the locusts. For more than 10 times, Toyo visited Mokurai with different sounds. All were wrong. For almost a year, he pondered the sound of 1 hand. He pondered what the sound of 1 hand might be. At last, little Toyo entered true meditation and transcended all sounds. It's not bad for 1 year of meditation, 13 years old. I could collect no more, he explained later, so I reached the soundless sound. Toyo had realized the sound of 1 hand. Now, this is not the answer to the koan. If you ever get this riddle asked to you, you don't just say, oh, I know, it's a soundless sound. That is completely missing the whole thing. It's, contemplating, trying to figure it out, trying to get your brain to understand it, having all of your possible ideas rejected, and then letting that whole process go and just allowing yourself to be in the present moment and really experiencing. The sound of 1 hand clapping is not something that you can actually hear or reason out. It is something that is experience, beyond the darkness of closed eyes and beyond your normal kind of state of consciousness. So this is an expression of Zen itself. And if that sounds like a floaty kind of non-answer, that's exactly what it is. You're not getting the answers from me. But I think it is a great illustration. This story is a wonderful illustration of the process of the non-process, the method that we try to use to solve problems. The human brain is designed to do this so well The human brain is designed to get stuck on these concepts and try to figure things out. But we have to, in order to transcend that normal way of being, we have to let go of all of it and just feel and just be. And there is a whole universe available to us there of experiencing and expanding the consciousness beyond what we're used to. So that's what you don't know that you don't know. And that is the deepest we'll get tonight. I'm going to backtrack a little bit and go to what you're pretending that you don't know. And this is like sticking your head in the sand. This is like there's something happening and I'm just going to like pretend that it's not happening because I don't want to have to take responsibility or it's too awkward to deal with it. This is a real tough thing that I'd rather just pretend that I don't know. And I see it in people's practice in the dojo very often, and it looks something like a senior student helping a junior student, and the junior student is struggling with the technique, and the senior student is, might try to explain it a little bit, but they kind of give up very quickly because they say to themselves, well, I don't know this well enough to really help my partner. Or Sifu's right there, so we should just ask Sifu. And of course, it's a great idea. I love it when people ask me questions, ask about the technique. If you need help, you need help. But make sure that you are not shortchanging yourself and just shirking the responsibility because it's just easier this way, or because you're afraid of messing up. And this is a very common experience that people have as a senior student, is they're afraid that they're going to mess up. They're afraid they're going to, look dumb. And while I don't want you to have your partner's confidence in you shot because you totally messed up, there are a lot of things that that you're pretending not to know. And it's often because of something around that, not wanting the responsibility for it. So, of course, you can go too far in the other direction, and you can pretend that you know all kinds of stuff. And I had this experience several times. The one that sticks in my head the most was I had learned this choke that we do. It's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu technique, and it's called a triangle choke, where you're choking somebody with your legs. And so some of you have done it in class, and some of you will get to do it someday. And I'm actually going to teach you the right way because of this experience. I had learned it one time. I'd seen a bunch of people do it in professional fights, and I thought, this is such a cool technique. I got to teach it in class tonight. I was not good at teaching it. And I set out to start teaching it, and I'm halfway through it, and I realized, I don't know this at all. I don't know how to explain it. I'm literally not doing it right. And some of the other senior students were like over me, like, I think actually you need to switch the leg on the other side. And it was a hot mess, a total disaster. And I never again tried to teach that technique before I fully knew it and knew how to explain it. And that's something that I had enough of an experience early on in my teaching that I realized this is something that I need to make sure that I know. But that's a different side of the same coin. It's taking responsibility, learning it, and then being able to help other people with it. So this is something that we'll experience in life far more often than you will only in the dojo in your practice here. There are so many things that we pretend not to know, things that might be happening over a long period of time in our own lives that we need to like really do something about, things that are happening out in the world that we're pretending, I don't know enough to be able to help with this. I just kind of, I don't know. It's out of my wheelhouse. I can't do anything about it. So I got a couple of stories about this. One is a very short, very cute story. This is called Time to Die. EQ, the Zen master, EQ has a great name. It's the same name as this technique. EQ was very clever, even as a boy. His teacher had a precious teacup, a rare antique. Ikkyu happened to break this cup and was greatly perplexed. Hearing the footsteps of his teacher, he held the pieces of the cup behind him. When the master appeared, Ikkyu asked, "Why do people have to die?" "This is natural," explained the older man. "Everything has to die and has just so long to live." Ikkyu, producing the shattered cup, added, "It was time for your cup to die." And I really love this story because it shows like the razor wit and kind of creativity of being able to deal. But let's be clear, this is an example of shirking responsibility. This is like a smart ass way of dealing with owning up to, I just broke your precious cup that you love so much and is ancient and worth so much money. And this is like, as far as an example of not really owning up to things goes, this is the worst example that's in this book that I could think of. Not the worst, but this is a blatant example, and it's not that bad because he came right out with it. I mean, it took this Zen student all of like 30 seconds to own up with this and then move beyond it. This is not typically how normal people handle it. We ruminate and we stew and we pretend and we keep it really hidden and pretend that we can't deal with it right now. And this is where so much of our angst and anxiety and trouble in life comes from, is from these things, this baggage that we can and should deal with. And we might not know the right way to deal with it, but dealing with it and facing it is certainly better than pretending that it's not happening and just putting it off. And this is one of the things that we cannot do as a martial artist, because if somebody's punching at you and you don't know, should I go left? Should I go right? And you just like, I don't know what to do. If you put it off, you get punched. And if you don't take responsibility for, learning what you need to learn for your technique to fix it, make it better, it will never happen. Nobody's coming to make your technique perfect for you, right? Even if I, grab your arm and move you in the right motion, you have to take responsibility for it and make it happen. So this is something that we learn at a very basic level, a very easy to understand level, but we should apply this to all things in life. What are these things that we're putting off, putting our head in the sand, pretending not to know, to avoid responsibility? So I'm going to give you an example that is a really great way of dealing with something like this. So this is called, If You Love, Love Openly. 20 monks and one nun, who was named Ishan, were practicing meditation with a certain Zen master. Ishan was very pretty. Even though her head was shaved and her dress plain, several monks secretly fell in love with her. One of them wrote her a love letter, insisting on a private meeting. Ishan did not reply. The following day, the master gave a lecture to the group, and when it was over, Ishan arose. Addressing the one who had written her, she said, "If you really love me so much, come and embrace me now." And can you take this from me, man? That's just a bold baller way of handling that, just like in front of everybody. And that's not always appropriate, but this is what very often happens when, and this, there are all kinds of dynamics at play here that are beyond the scope of this talk, but very often there's something that is kind of like this, this secret thing or this whatever, this thing that's difficult, it's awkward, I don't know how to deal with it. And we want to have this kind of power. We want to have this kind of bold ability to just stand up and deal with it and take it head on right away. And it's not always there for us, but it's something that we're working towards. We will never have the ability to actually stand up and deal unless we stop pretending. Stop pretending that it's not happening. Stop pretending that we don't know. Stop pretending that we don't have the power to deal with it. And the power to deal with these things in our lives might look like any of a number of different things. It might mean bringing somebody else in to get them involved. It might mean dealing with it yourself. It might mean like, I know how I got to deal with this. I got to move to a different country, like whatever it is. I'm not pointing at anybody, but there are countless opportunities that we'll have in life where these things come up, and it's just easier, or so it seems, to pretend. And if we're really being honest with ourselves, we know that this is not the way to deal with it. And meditation is one of the most important, most simple and foolproof ways of getting into contact with what is actually going on, what is reality. We cannot hide from ourselves when we're meditating. Cannot hide from the truth when we're meditating. When there's no noise there, all that comes up is, what's going on in your brain. And look, some of this is nonsense, of course. You could be sitting to meditate, but you're actually fantasizing about something or worrying about whatever else. But when we're able to clear the mind and we're able to just fully be present, this clearing is where truth really is. And this is where we will be able to recognize what is actually happening and stop pretending that we don't know. But it is also the place from which we can respond really well and powerfully. And it might not be the right thing to do. It might not be the one perfect solution, but we can at least be powerful in it when we refuse to pretend and when we take things head on like that. Then even if you fail miserably, you crash and burn, it's a glorious disaster, you still can feel empowered by the fact that you stepped up and dealt with it. So this is very often the way that it's going to go. We're going to mess it up, but at least we're not hiding it and pretending. So meditation is certainly not just a tool for that end, but it is a great tool for that end. It helps us so much to really come face to face with what is going on and to give us that powerful place to act from. So in your meditation tonight, look for that clearing. Look for this. I just lost everybody on Facebook, but that's okay. Look for this place. And it's not something that you go out and seek, really. It is something that comes to you, but you got to allow it to happen, allow it to show up, and then take hold of it, step into it. And then when your meditation is done, be able to act from that place in whatever it is. It could literally just be, I'm standing up and walking. It could be, I get in the car and I know there's somebody that I got to call to deal with this thing that I've been putting off, and I'm going to call them right now because I know I'm in the right state of mind, or the best possible state of mind to deal with it. So all those things that come up for you when you're meditating, this is not the time to sit and think and plan. This is what I'm going to say, and then they're going to say this, and then I'm going to say that. Just let all that go, but recognize what's there for you, and then recognize that it will still be there for you when your meditation is done. So for now, let it go, and then when meditation is done, step up, deal with whatever needs to be dealt with. Sit comfortably.